Hey all, here is a replay version of the most recent live stream Q&A on all things Social Security that occurs every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So this is with all the little silences carved out of it. So I hope it's an easier listen for those who are doing the replay versus being there live. And we'd love to see you live. So feel free to pop in. Bye-bye now. Gilmar Santos is in the house. Hi, Gilmar. Nice to meet you. I don't think we've met. Simon says, is it normal for your attorney to not meet with you after the hearing? When you say meet with you mean speak to you? Because most of us are, doing things over Zoom and MS Teams and all that. I know, like, I had a hearing yesterday, and when we're checking out with the judge, I'm like, he's like, okay, hearing over. I'm like, all right, so-and-so, I'll call you in like 2 minutes. And then we got off and we had a phone call and we discussed, what went on at the hearing, and still have to wait for decision and all that, but, all that kind of stuff. But I don't invite him out for coffee or anything, if that's what you mean. I have my coffee with you guys. So I don't really know what you mean, because most of us who do this as robustly as I do, we don't do the coffee meeting, blah, blah. We don't even make, our clients are disabled, so we don't make them come to where we are. You know what I mean? We don't make them do any of that. We don't make them go to a hearing in person. There are other ways to do it, which are nowadays, these days, the preferred way to do it. We do it kind of like the way the SSA does it. It's all kind of streamlined with how they work it. So this makes for smoother everything. Let's see, 3D. The financial stress during this process can be overwhelming. How do people usually manage that without jeopardizing their case while it's pending? Yeah, that could be a whole hour of discussion, right? One thing I always talk to my people about, 3D, if I get the gist that they're going to need it, or if it's someone who comes to me and they're still working, but they're like thinking about filing because the work is getting so incredibly hard on people. Sometimes we have to, one of our, usually in that initial conversation is like, how are you going to get by? Do you have a spouse who earns an income? And can you downsize? Can you shrink your budget? Can you, getting rid of some frivolous spending, maybe not having Netflix and Hulu and just having one, or not having either. Everyone is so different. Some people have 401ks they can spend and rely on and survive on, which I hate that, because you want to have that for later, you don't want to have it. Some people will work part-time under SGA so they can have their case keep going while they're fighting the battle. So everyone is different in terms of what they need to do and what they're willing to do. Some people sell their house if it's big and they don't need a big house anymore because the kids are out of the house, and they go and they take their equity that they get from the sale and they buy a 2-bedroom little tiny place, because they know with or without winning, their income's down. And being retired and not working, it's still down, right? I mean, you're living on fixed income. So everyone's got to try to, there's probably counselors out there that, I don't know if they're pro bono, but, give ideas like, have you considered doing this? Can you do this? Da-da-da. I think that would be something to look into. Think about it on your own, of course. You can think about what you can. I mean, there's budgeting courses out there too. There's also, Dave Ramsey. Everyone knows Dave Ramsey, right? I mean, what a rock star in terms of people getting out of debt and stuff. This isn't the same, but it is sometimes, because some people get into a lot of debt. They live off of a credit card while they're not able to work when they're fighting a case. And it can be really bad. Sometimes they don't prioritize enough and they're going to lose their house because they go into foreclosure. And I hate when I see that happen, because why didn't you just sell, take the equity, and get something affordable within your means? And some people can and cannot do that. Some people don't have a house to do that with. They just have to live in an apartment. I would say too, sometimes people go, if they're, let's say, they're like a single person, always paid, had a good job, paying their own rent, and this part, sometimes they go and live with family. What am I hearing out there? And it's temporary. It can be temporary. And then when they prevail, they, make sure they have a down payment or, deposit if they're going to rent someplace within their means. Sometimes people move from a expensive area in the country to a less expensive area in the country. A small, more rural town that's not so high end. Some people are like, no, I refuse to move out of Bel Air. This is my home. I've lived here in this mansion forever. And then sometimes they're the ones that pay the price, because they're going to lose the whole ship. So tough decisions have to be made. I was just before this, I had a meeting with my first time I've ever had a financial advisor in my life for the last 5 years, and helped me get from, where we weren't where we needed to be, and, all that. And, I'm old enough where I'm breathing down retirement. Plan on doing this for another probably 12 years or something, but it's still like approaching the 6. But for his guidance, we end up now paying for, we wouldn't be where we are. It was even just like the things about, it wasn't really about budgeting down. He never like went into that stuff, but it was about forced savings, just make savings one of your bills and it's over there. So regardless, you don't even know, you don't see it because it's automatic. So you're not like paying a bill per se. The dogs are being very crazy out there. Anyway, that's a whole, we could go on, we could have a special whole chat about that, couldn't we? Ways to cut down. But there are so many programs out there that I think can show people what to look at to trim. I mean, I should still be doing it because I know I have subscriptions that I should be getting rid of, and I don't even know half of what they are. Sometimes you get automatic. We found out about 2 weeks ago, somehow without us knowing, so we pressed on something and didn't see the fine print or whatever. We had like 7 subscriptions that came about through Amazon Prime, I think. Like, what's that one? Those movie networks, Paramount. I kept seeing it when we go into Prime, and I said, well, it's there. They must provide that for free as part of one of the. No, we were paying like $100 a month in subscriptions. We didn't even know we're subscription. It's bad. So I know we have more to go in that, but that's ludicrous. Ludicrous. Gilmar says, I don't know what that means. Manage with caution. Yeah. Mark is in the house. Mark B. I don't think we've met Mark. I applied for SSI and SSDI in 2023, was denied, but won the case. Okay, so you were denied, appealed, won the case, but was just a couple credits short of SSDI. But now suddenly SSA wants new SSDI application. Are you working part-time? I don't even know what to say. I mean, did SSI call you out of the blue and be like, we want you to apply for SSDI? I don't really know what's going on. Was awarded SSI. I'm wondering why they would do that. Did they find new credits? Have you worked? I'd love to see you on SSDI instead of SSI. Yeah. There's so much more freedoms to be on SSDI instead of SSI. I mean, SSDI people probably complain because they're worried about CDRs. That's the only thing they got to worry about. SSI people have to worry about everything. If someone gives me $500 for Christmas, oh my God, do I have to report it? And I can't inherit, and I don't dare play the lottery because I cannot lose my Medicaid and my SSI. So SSDI is better, plus you get the Medicare, and then you have that thumb off your neck. You could marry a rich person, inherit $1 million. You can do so many things. All right. I don't know why that's happening, Mark, but if you were working a little bit, that would explain it. It seems like a long time, a little late in day for them to find credits, Angela. Oh, Angel. Hi, Angel. I don't think we met. Hi, I'm Angela. I have CDR review for my SSI in March. Okay. I just talked to them a couple of weeks ago. I added my grandbaby living with me, so I'm unsure what the second would be about. CDR has to do with your disability, not your finances. Generally, you said SSI, so that means people that live in your house can be relevant. So you're 50, you've been on SSI since you were 39. You were not on Social Security, so you didn't pay in enough to get SSD during your non-disabled years. I don't know. CDR, everyone has to go through CDR. Is that your first one? They want to see if you're still disabled. I mean, on the positive note, Angela, you're over 50. So unless your physical problems all disappeared, and unless it's totally mental, you have at least the grid rule in your favor. So Mole says, hey, Walter will love you. He has dogs too. Oh, Walter, not? He has dogs too. To SSA lawyers, oh, you're married. I live in West Virginia. Yeah, I'm married. I'm happily married. But all good. James is in the house. Nice to see you, James. Well, I'm off to see the district federal judge to challenge the SSA pencil whooping my decision. Okay. Good day, everyone. Good to see you, James. Pencil whooping. You're welcome, Sarah. Jen Me says, my therapist and I talked about this one by one at length. One of the 4 or 5 criteria to say if you can do each of these things is a sustained basis and basically can't do anything on sustained. Yes, but there can be I can't do it on a sustained basis for 8 hours, but I can do it for 4. I can't speak to your specifics, but I'm just telling you generally. I understood what your lawyer was saying when what the SSA is going to say when something says all the severe, and then your therapist notes do not speak to all those things being severe. Her real-time notes. So suddenly her notes are inconsistent. I'm just saying that's something that could have happened, because her notes better back up her opinion when she put severe on everything. And so many times therapists will be like, doing good, because it's like a pat on the back, because my therapy's so darn good, or because their boss. There are definitely something to the phenomenon that therapists, if they work for somebody else, are often required to show that it's helping. I feel like there is a smart way to do that without sabotaging someone's case, but they're maybe not that sharp. But they have to talk about how good it's going, or else maybe they get funding cut. Well, if you're not helping, why are we still funding you? I don't know. It's usually everything comes down to the money though. So therapy notes are often, particularly for someone who's not independent and able to say what they want to say. Yeah, Jen, I get what you're saying, but do you get what I'm saying? If you're looking at just one thing, you're going to miss all the other things that actually feed into the whole totality of those circumstances and legal rules. Sherry Romero says, yes, I do have a representative, but thanks. I have the hearing in June. Just wanted to know if you thought I had a good chance of winning. Your age is a detriment, but you have a representative. That's a positive because that makes me know that they're probably organizing your medical evidence. It sounds like you have good evidence. Like if someone with a in the harder age range had your stuff, that would be the kind of case that someone might be willing to go out on a limb for. So that's my point, because it sounds like you've got it so bad, my dear. And I'm so glad you have a representative, because it just seems better. It just seems like there's more evidence to be had, and they can make the legal arguments, because the judge is never going to know the case like we do. There's just no way. So sometimes you just want to, point out. So we do the briefs, point out the things that would be legally implicating that are, hidden in the records. But we go through the records word by word, so as long as we can read them. Siren says, I meant over the phone after the hearing. Sorry. Some do, some don't. I do. I always do. But, we're always in such a, even though we don't do a lot of phone talk during the whole workup of the case, it's more messaging, because we're going to be in person at the hearing, and we do it phone trial hearing prep, like a day to a few days before the hearing, and that's usually a few hours. By then, we're like, I don't know. It's kind of like being in a trauma situation with a stranger. You become fast friends. So we kind of have that thing that bonds us kind of towards the end. To whatever extent we didn't bond of the same degree through messaging and stuff. And then, I would always just call them. Just, I think that if I think it was very clear we won because of things the judge said, I'll tell them that. And I'll say, but we don't really know until the fat lady sings and we get that decision in hand. I'll be done in a minute. Maya, wait. Sorry, that's the Bernese. She just knocked on my glass door. She breaks so much stuff. She's like a big bullet. I'll be out in a minute. No potty till I get out. We are way over time. It's 2.5 hours. All right, let's see if I can blow through this now. Yeah, so I do. I always call my people, but I don't know that everybody else does that. And it's proven even by medical records. As you know, I can communicate with anyone if I'm in the hospital. You mean you can't communicate with anyone if I'm in the hospital of treatment because my conditions are so bad, especially if you add more stressors. I understand, and I have hopes that you're going to overturn this. You know your case better. I am glad you have the attorney, though, because she's pointing out the weaknesses. So obviously there are weaknesses, or the judge wouldn't have gone the way they went, even if the judge was mistaken to go that way. You follow what I'm saying? So if we can get rid of those weaknesses, the whole point is getting you to win. It doesn't have to be only this way do we want the win. No, I got what you said. Yeah, I knew what you were saying, Jen. You can't communicate when you're in the hospital. Yeah. And, as we've said before, if someone's getting psychiatrically admitted twice a year for not for 3 days, but with an involuntary or, longer few months, twice a year is I can't imagine that being a lost case. I don't know if you need it that much, but something like that, maybe even once a year if it's pretty long. Because let's face it, when you're out of the hospital, it's not like you're suddenly perfect, and everything, all the impairments are gone. Cly is in the house. I don't think we've met. Cly says, I am 32. Never been able to work because of health. Always lived with and financially supported by parents, but need financial assistance now. Could I be approved for disability, never having worked? For SSI, yes. Or if you can prove that you were disabled before age 22, you might be eligible for DAC benefits on one of your parents' work records, if either one of them are claiming or will claim in the future. So definitely save all your old stuff, because you might not be able to apply for DAC now because your parents are not collecting. No one's passed, no one's disabled, no one's retired, but one day they will be old enough to collect. And then you, even if you're on SSI, at 45 years old, even you could change up to, so you don't have your own work record, but you might be able to go up your parents, but you have to prove that you were disabled before the age of 22 and that continued ever since, and you can't be married unless it's to another DAC person or possibly another disabled person. I'm not sure it has to be a DAC person. So yeah, for sure. You've never applied? Gosh, it's a shame that you didn't apply before. I would, you never even applied, you never even worked part-time. So then you're severely disabled, or would you have been able to pull up part-time, but you had your parents supporting you, so you didn't do it? One way or the other, right? Yeah, you can definitely apply if you think you're disabled from working. And you only have to be disabled from working full-time, Claude. You don't have to be disabled from doing a very part-time job that a disabled person can do. So you can still earn money. Chedme says, if someone moves, they should move to a jurisdiction with good ALJ approval ratings. There's a point to that. Although the funny thing is that they switch them up now. Sometimes, like I was saying, I had a hearing in Connecticut and my judge was in Puerto Rico and the person was in Connecticut. I think that's because my person was Spanish speaking, That was a young person. That was a long time ago. That was over 10 years ago. James says, my doctor literally documented that I should be limited to sedentary work in 2023, and yet not a mention from the ALJ and basically not considered at the appeals council. SSA equals a box of chocolates. Well, that's because your doctor screwed up a little bit. He was suddenly trying to be a vocational expert and saying sedentary when does he even know what sedentary means under the SSA rules? Perhaps what he should have said was a little more specifically, for medical reasons, it would be unsafe for him to be on his feet more than 2 hours out of an 8-hour day. He should be sitting most of the day. It's not safe for him, and or he would not be able to do it reliably to lift more than 9-10 pounds at all. Those are things, but when he's trying to pull out the definitions of sedentary, this and that. Secondly, I forget your vocational profile, James, but limiting you to sedentary still means you can do work. So limiting you to sedentary, would that have, if believed by the judge, would that have gotten you disability benefits when it's saying you can do sedentary work? That would come down to your vocational profile, and I don't recall what that was. Hey, Aunt Lizzie's in the house. I'm questioning the training expertise of the people who make decisions about disability regarding SSI with FAS. What's FAS? I don't know. You know, they're not doctors, so by sure you should question. Are they trained in the laws of SSA? Yes, they are. And there is a doctor who is a medical doctor who generally does the RFC decision. So you could question whether a doctor is a doctor or question whether he's a good doctor, but he is a MD or a potentially a DO, I think. So yeah, they got their credentials. Doesn't mean they necessarily do a top job. Soul Sucking World. Hi there, Soul. Hi, Miss Joy. Can you take my disability case? How do I go about it? That I wouldn't know. You'd have to go through our evaluation process, which, by the way, if you see the scrolling little thing on the bottom, it tells you to go to the website. I would say look in the upper left. You're going to see a link for a free evaluation, Soul, and we can take a look. All right. And if we can't, you'll be learning soon enough. We'll let you know that there's no opening in that particular category that you have. But that helps us figure that out so we can get back to you. My audio is good. Thank you. Mark says no work but felt weird. They're giving little to no info. Yeah, that is weird. Interesting. That is interesting. And you won a long time ago. You didn't win back. You didn't win now with an onset of 23, right? You've been on SSI for 2-3 years, and then suddenly they said file for SSI. Go ahead and download your annual earnings statement, Mark, and see if there's any like earnings popping up in 22, 23, 24 that wasn't there before. Maybe you do have more credits. I would find it weird that they would be doing a retro long after the fact of, I don't know, like a quality review much later. Reedy says, before my condition got worse, I was a college student and lost my benefits. Okay. Why'd you lose your benefits? So you were over 18 and you were on SSI, went to college, and then you lost. It's probably because they found that you were medically improved, I'm guessing. I had been relying on SSI and FAFSA student loans to support myself while in school. When my health declined, I couldn't even keep with basic things like my phone bill or fixing my car. Now I depend on odd jobs just to survive, while my disability case is still going through the process. It's humiliating at times. Yeah, I understand. I hope you have close family that supports you. The light's coming. It seems light out here and dark in here. Hey, Jennifer's in the house. Jennifer Cologne. Hi, Jennifer. Jennifer says, so you were live and just wanted to say hello. Good to see you. Found out yesterday that I have a permanent spinal cord injury. I am very sorry about that. I have cervical myopathy from C3 to T1. I'm so happy I finally got SSDI. Me too. And I'm going to see your boy tonight doing a collaboration with Jonathan at, I guess, 8:45 on his live stream Q&A. So if you pop in, Jennifer, I will see you there. Thanks for saying hi. I appreciate it. She says, it's hard enough not being able to use my hands and arms much and hold my head up. Oh my gosh. But continuing to fight for SSDI would be too much. It is a stressful journey. It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, I suppose that just makes it wonder. If I forget what year SSDI came out. Was it the 60s? Before that, was there less stress because there was no potential SSDI? So people didn't get stressed about it because it didn't exist? You know what I mean? I think back then, people's families, everyone was a little more cohesive. There wasn't this huge rift on families and separation and, not having close families anymore. And I just wonder, people were just disabled and their families, everyone stuck together. That's the way it was. Now we don't see as much of that. His families have kind of been on the self-destruction, I suppose, somehow. Just making it so far is in the house. Hi, and good to see you. I'm on the appeals council, and so he's at appeals council level. When I called the appeals council, they said my case was under evaluation. That means they're evaluating, and that means it sounds like you're not waiting in the bullpen for a panel to look at it. What does that mean? Also, I submitted a dire need. How do I make sure they mark my case as critical? Well, if they either believe or dire need and they do it or they don't, you can, when you called them, did you ask them if they had accepted it as a dire need case? I always say just be careful what you wish for. Do you want them to rush? I would tend to think of rushing is more of a denial than an award, because a word has to be highly substantiated to not get audited. So just be careful what you wish for. Not to say you shouldn't do dire if you have legitimate grounds, which would usually be like becoming homeless, not having family to live with, or going to lose, you're going to be foreclosed upon, that kind of thing. Just making it says, so sorry, I didn't even acknowledge you. How are you doing? You're here. That's an acknowledgement. Are you kidding? If you're talking to me, all good. Your mere presence.